Welcome back. Today we're covering what is an emulator and why do you need one. This series of videos I'm starting is kind of like an arcade for dummies. It was requested a long time ago, but I figured we could use a break from the arcade one-up talk, so I figured I would give this a shot. So first, let's do something fun. Let's do two trivia questions, and to answer, what I'd like you to do is pause and write the answer in the comments. Now, make sure don't cheat and look at the other answers. If you get it wrong, also please don't go back and change it. Let's keep the original answers. But if you got it right or not, reply to your own comment and say yes or crap, you know. But the first question: what do you think was the first commercial arcade game? And the second question is, what was the first emulator? So, guys, yeah, like I said, welcome back. Things have been amazing. I'm actually building a pipeline of videos, and I plan to release every 2 weeks. I could probably do more, but I want to leave time for fun and other projects, and so I can do some proper research when needed. I responded to all my various social media comments and emails, and it's just been amazing when your brain is firing on all cylinders. I've also noticed that, unlike most guys, I like to talk about issues that most guys won't talk about. However, I think we're all kind of in the same situation. We just stay quiet about it. Um, I kind of feel like we're on little islands and we're providers to our family and the ones we care about. We make sure that they're taken care of, and we just forget to take care of ourselves. And therefore, I think we kind of all end up a little bit lonely. So I'm debating on whether or not to make content like this as well. But if it speaks to you and you would like to have kind of that I'm not alone feeling, let me know in the comments if I should do it or not. Yeah. So let me know um, if you'd like to see that. Now, let's get back to the topic at hand, and that's emulators. To understand what an emulator is, you need to first understand the history of what we're dealing with. So let's go way back. In fact, let's go back to the first arcade game. Now, many thought that this is Pong, but it actually wasn't. The first commercial computer game, arcade game, or sorry, not computer game, the first arcade game was called Computer Space. Did you guys get it right? Make sure to respond to your answer below. Um, but yeah, so the first game was called Computer Space, and it was created by Nolan Bushnell and Ted Dabney. These are also the two founders of Atari Inc. Computer Space was originally released in 1971. It was this success that was followed up the next year with the release of Pong. So this one was successful, and then they released Pong. So I can't imagine what it would look like to have one of these machines. You know, I mean, does it look as weird to me now as it probably did to the people back then, or was that what future looked like to them? These games were released in various colors: yellow, blue, green, red, white. And I mean, what would you think seeing this thing here? In any case, that was 50 years ago, and hardware has definitely changed over the years. In the early days, hardware and boards were purposely built specifically for the games that they were hosting. Various chips were built for different purposes, and each chip had different instructions needed to complete a required task. A big example of this is back when Macintosh was considered better for graphics, better for video. And this wasn't just because the interfaces were designed more for the graphical or artistic users. It was specifically because at the time, Macintosh ran the PowerPC chip. It was actually, the issue was that they required fewer instructions to perform the same work. So, for example, let's say you wanted to make a circle on a Macintosh PowerPC system. It may have, say, and this is just made up numbers, but let's say it had two instructions to make that circle, whereas the Intel counterpart may have taken four steps to do the same deal. Again, that's very basic and those numbers are off, but it's the correct idea. The PowerPC required less instructions, the Intel required more. So each time the Mac would outperform the PC, Intel would fight back by releasing a faster processor, because if they take two instructions and we take four, but we can make our chip twice as fast, then they'll be even. So this battle back and forth would continue going. Intel would make a faster chip, PowerPC would make a faster chip. And they kept that advantage of having less instructions required, so they were able to continually beat the Intel when it came to graphics and video, until the PowerPC reached a point where they could not get faster chips. They kept crashing, they couldn't get them to run stable, and Intel just continually kept growing their speed. So it was at that point back in 2005 that Macintosh finally gave up on the PowerPC chip and then started to use Intel processors. And from that point on, um, it became a matter of status of which one you were into, not a performance issue, because those instruction sets now are the same. So therefore, performance wasn't being outmatched. It was then a stylistic choice, or if you want to be, as they say, be different, or you kind of wanted to give it to Microsoft and say, screw you, Microsoft, I'm not going to pay for that. So that's kind of what happened with the Macintosh and the PC. Is now that they got the same processor, it just became more of a political sort of social choice of which system you wanted to go with. But that brings us back to the reason of why we need emulators. Based on the hardware instructions required to tell the system how to do things, it's going to be different in different types of hardware. So, for example, a Nintendo system from NES and on has a completely different architecture, design, controls, instructions, chips than, say, a PlayStation. The languages also used are completely different between the systems. Hell, even the different versions of Nintendo aren't compatible with each other directly. So, to answer this, they needed something that can understand modern computer languages and hardware and translate it to those older computer dialects or hardware environments. And this is where the emulator comes in. An emulator is programmed using current day languages by very smart people, way more than me, that have looked at how this older systems were created, how they were wired, how the chips were physically built, and made an environment to emulate that sort of function. They've also used special equipment that can read those original chips and pull the files off of it, and that's what we refer to as ROM files. They're from the ROM chips that were in the video game originally. This data was once stored directly on the chips and now is available to us as a file. They've also programmed an environment that acts like the original hardware where instructions are sent. I like to kind of think of it like Star Trek and a holodeck. They're in that virtual environment that's been created, and the holodeck is kind of like a simulation running of the original hardware. If you haven't yet, make sure to like and subscribe to this video and turn on those notifications so you can see when that next one comes out. And then as a matter of fact, yeah, I'm working on a video to address that latency. I'm sorry, I'm still getting used to this thing. But yeah, turn on those notifications. But that should answer the question as far as what is an emulator. It's a piece of software to emulate older hardware or software. Without that, older software would die and be forgotten as soon as that old hardware will rust out and be thrown into a junkyard. But with the emulators and software, we can relive that nostalgia and play those things that we used to play. Now, these emulators nowadays are used all over the place. In fact, when Nintendo Wii made some of their older games available on the Wii, they created an emulator so that they could offer those games in their own system. And when Windows changed to 64-bit, they used an emulator to continue being able to support those older 32-bit applications. That is what Windows compatibility mode is. It's simply an emulator designed to emulate the environment of the older Windows system. But that's also the reason for the first also That's the reason why the first emulator was made. Now, again, if you haven't answered, what do you think was the first emulator? The first emulator was made by IBM in order to support applications that they had created on their previous IBM hardware. See, even within that same company, they made a new generation. They ended up having to make an emulator to make their own stuff work because they changed the hardware architecture they were using and it was no longer functional with their old software. So they made that middleman emulator to accomplish that goal. So for us, allow emulators allow us to resurrect that nostalgia of the past and play those games that we loved so much and dumped so much of our piggy banks into. In fact, I learned that it would have cost me $60 to complete Area 51 when I was a kid. Probably more because I wasn't as good of a shot as I am now, but that's a lot of money to a little kid, in elementary school. But let's take a moment to thank those crazy and amazingly smart individuals that took the time to make these emulators to allow us to relive those parts of our childhood. Those parts of the childhood before we had these incredible responsibilities that we do now resting on our shoulders. That time in our life when the biggest concern was how to get to the next goal or the next boss, or back then it was just who got the highest score. That time when pinball machines came up as high as our chests and sitting up here just trying to look to see the play field because we're too short. And our biggest worry was that the weekend was almost over and Monday was coming soon and we'd have to go back to school. I mean, if we really think about it, this is why, at least for me, that I'm so passionate about playing these old games and stuff like that, is it's that time to be free of responsibilities, free of your obligations, paying bills, and having to prepare for the next day. It was just the only life we were in charge of was our own. We had no plan about the future. We honestly didn't care about it. It was just, I just wish I realized back then how much I would cherish that time once it was gone. So if you've enjoyed this video and would like to see more, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, and share. Please, please share to help grow this channel. The platform is kind of like no longer really pushing, promoting these smaller channels. It's all the stuff that's getting big ad revenue. So please make sure to like, subscribe, and share so I can continue to grow this channel. And I will try to continue to be consistent in releasing videos. And we'll see you guys very soon. I thank you for watching. Yeah, and we'll see if we can keep this 2-week schedule going. Thank you.